James Franklin has been fired by Penn State. I was generally shocked by this news, despite the fact that he had such a great record there and was only having one down year. They decided to fire him. Yes, I understand that he could never really win the big games, but he still won them a lot of games, and I really don't know of anybody who Penn State could get that will be any better than him. But I decided to go over the coaching candidates that could replace him. One of the biggest names in this search has been Kirk Cignetti. Kirk Cignetti has done incredible at Indiana, who is considered one of the worst programs in college football historically, as last year he went 11-1 in the regular season and made the college football playoffs, and this year they are currently 6-0. I really couldn't see him leaving Indiana for Penn State, despite the fact that Penn State is a much bigger job. He has done so good at Indiana and hasn't made there. Another candidate that has been named is Matt Rhule. Rhule's first 2 years at Nebraska were kind of mediocre, although he did give them their first winning season and first bowl win in 8 years, which was also their first bowl appearance in 8 years. But this year they are currently 5-1, so it does look like he is building Nebraska up. He is also a Penn State alumni, so maybe Penn State could lure him away since he's an alumni. However, I just don't see that happening. He's already in the Big Ten, and he's getting paid so much. And I don't know, I just don't see it happening. Another name that has been on this search is Lane Kiffin. I don't see this happening in any way. Yes, Lane Kiffin has been a great coach at Ole Miss, but he has no ties to the Northeast or the state of Pennsylvania. Most of his ties and experience is in the Southeast and the West Coast. He is definitely not leaving Ole Miss for Penn State out of all jobs. If he were to ever leave Ole Miss, it would be more than likely for Alabama. I definitely don't think he would leave to go to Happy Valley. Another coach that has been named in this search is LSU head coach Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly, in my opinion, is like the SEC's version of James Franklin, and really would not be much of an upgrade from James Franklin. Whether it be his time at LSU or Notre Dame, he wins a lot of games, yes, but he can't seem to win the big ones. I understand that he does have ties up north since he was the head coach at Notre Dame, but like I said, he's just like James Franklin. He wins a lot of games, but he can't win the big ones. And I don't think he wants to go back up north anyway. One of the most interesting names on this list is UNLV head coach Dan Mullen. Mullen has currently taken UNLV to a 6-0 start on the season, and so far has done great there. And in case if you didn't know, he was a great head coach for Mississippi State and gave them one of their best finishes in program history and has the second most wins of any head coach there ever. He also did great in his first 3 years at Florida. However, unfortunately, his last year, everything fell apart as he stopped recruiting. He is a Pennsylvania native, so that is something to note. And I think this would be a perfect fit if it just wasn't for the fact how everything fell apart his last year at Florida and the way he just stopped recruiting and let everything fall apart. If it wasn't for that, I think he would be the perfect hire. And I still think that Penn State needs to look at him, and maybe this could work out. I could definitely see this happening. Another name that has been in the search is Oregon offensive coordinator Will Stein. Will Stein is 36 years old and has spent 3 years as the offensive coordinator for Oregon. And he's done a great job. He's developed 3 really good quarterbacks. But I really think this will be risky, as this is the first big job he's ever really had. He's never been a head coach. Oregon's really the only Power 4 school that he's been a big-time assistant for. And I just really think this will be a major downgrade in comparison to what Penn State had with James Franklin. I really don't think this will work out. Another name that has popped up is Manny Diaz, the head coach at Duke. Diaz has actually done a pretty solid job in his 2 years at Duke, especially for Duke standards. He was also the defensive coordinator at Penn State before leaving to Duke, so he has ties to the program. So it might look like a perfect fit. However, we also have to note that he was mostly average in the 3 years he spent as the head coach of Miami. I could see this happen, But again, I feel like this is a major downgrade from James Franklin. Another name that has been mentioned is Iowa State head coach Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell has done a great job at Iowa State, and he last year led them to their first 10-plus win season, winning 11 games overall, and has made the Big 12 championship twice. He's been mentioned in almost every big-time head coaching search. However, would this finally be the time that he'd leave Iowa State to take a bigger job? I highly doubt it. Another name that has been mentioned is South Florida head football coach Alex Galosh. Alex Galosh has turned South Florida around as he inherited a 1-11 team, but went 7-6 with a bowl win in his very first year as the head coach of the Bulls. Then he went 7-6 again the very next year, and this year they are currently 5-1 on the season. He upset Florida on their home field, and he's done a great job at South Florida. He's been mentioned in a lot of big-time head coaching searches. However, would Penn State be the one that he'd leave for? I don't know. It's also worth noting that he was a great offensive coordinator for Tennessee and helped develop Hendon Hooker into a star quarterback. Anyways, that's all for this video. Please like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. This is Schultz31. See you guys next time.